So we have our two core areas for the comprehensive exam. We'll talk about that one first. The facts are we have two core areas. You must answer a question from each of these two core areas. One is research methods and statistics, and one is criminological theory. That would be the morning session portion of the comprehensive exam. Then in the afternoon section, you have two elective areas. So you get to choose from these three, either administration of criminal justice, legal aspects, or criminal justice systems and processes. For each of these sections, you have 3 hours to complete the two questions. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So, what about these tips? How do you prepare for the exam? The best tip is to start early. Use every class to prepare. Remember to keep certain textbooks. There are certain texts that you will find invaluable when it's time to study for the comprehensive exam, and you want to make sure that you still have those. Your theory book, your methods book, if you choose administration, your administration book. So there are a few of those that you want to make sure that you keep track of. Another thing that you want to do is ask other students. What was it like? How scary was it really? What did you do to prepare? Do you have any notes I can borrow? Ask other students. Another thing is to ask your professors. It's not a secret. It's not a Secret Service kind of an operation. We will talk to you about what questions are like. They're typically formed in a particular way. Many professors use class exams to mimic the comprehensive exam. So ask specifically, is this the kind of question that would be on the comprehensive exam? And you can find out the answer to that. Another very important thing to do when you're preparing for the exam is to think very honestly about your own weaknesses. What could make you not do so well? My own personal weakness was that I knew that I would sit down ready to take the exam, and I wouldn't be able to remember a thing. Everything would leave my head. So I thought very critically about myself and how I could make a strategy so that this wouldn't happen to me. So my strategy was I sat down, I didn't even look at the questions, and I just started writing a list of author names. It was the theory part. So I just started writing all these theorists' names so that once I looked at the question, I could look at my list of theorists and go, oh, that's the guy. So think very honestly about your weaknesses and come up with a strategy for yourself. Some other hints are to organize your material. One thing that you want to do is start with a pretty broad overview. So if the topic is criminological theory, what's the point of criminological theory class? Think very broadly about the topic. Administration of justice, what's the point of that class? Think very broad. And then start to get more specific. Think about specific theorists and theories and examples. And then kind of work back out again. Okay, so this is how this specific item fits into the big picture. So think on all levels when you are organizing your material. Often when it comes to the comprehensive exam, it is very beneficial to divide the work. Have a small study group. I'll work on this theorist, you work on that theorist, and we'll then come together and brainstorm what we figured out together, and we can help each other. And then finally, one very important thing to do when you're preparing for the exam is to take care of yourself. Spread out your studying. Don't cram at the last minute. If the comprehensive exam is in October, you should have started studying way before September, let's put it that way. So make sure that when you go into the exam, you're prepared. You feel confident about what you're about to do. Take the opportunity to pass the exam by preparing well ahead of time. So what to do during the exam? You've taken all this time to prepare. Now, how do you successfully get through these 6 hours? The very first thing you want to do is stop and think. A lot of students, you can tell in their answers that they are like, I have a time limit. So they just sit down at the computer and their fingers start going. Stop and think. You'll have time. Take 5 to 8 minutes per question, just like I did, to write down theorist names or to make an outline. Okay, my introduction, what should I put in there? Make sure to put that purpose of your answer. What key points am I really going to put into this answer? And start to think about what you're going to do. The number one reason that students fail the comprehensive exam is because they fail to answer the entire question. Frequently, comprehensive exam questions are short questions with very long answers. So make sure you check off each part of it. One tip that I got from a fellow student who had been through the exam, and I hadn't been through the exam yet, he said bold each of those and drop them into your document. And so that you make sure once you're finished with this part of the question, you're ready to move on to the next part, and it's there so that you don't forget any of them. Come up with a strategy so that you can remember to answer the entire question. Be organized. Even though comprehensive exam questions are from memory, it's kind of difficult to do that, still be organized. My personal phrase is, pretend the reader is stupid. What's the purpose of your answer? I'm going to talk about A, B, and C. And then you have a paragraph about A, a paragraph about B, and a paragraph about C. Basically, it should contain all the same parts as a research paper. A little bit of an introduction, some sort of a review, make 3 key points, and some sort of a conclusion. And just be very clear and concise. And remember those topic sentences. Your topic sentence should be what your paragraph is about. Same thing for the comprehensive exam. The less we have to struggle with what point were they trying to make here, the better it'll be for you. We'll clearly be able to see that you knew what you were talking about. Manage your time wisely. It's a very simple equation. Even I could do it. 3 hours divided by 2 questions is 1.5 hours per question. I did have a colleague who was the same situation. She spent 2.5 hours on her first question. It was an amazing answer, but she failed because then she only had a half an hour to write the second one and it was incomplete. So just keep that in mind. Use that as a guide. And relax. It's very easy for me to say while I'm standing up here, but literally sit down, take a deep breath, make your answer, make your best answer. Be rested. Don't stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning studying. You should take that last night to be like, I know what I'm doing and I'm ready to pass. Use your success strategy. Don't let it go out the window. Remember what it was. And if you have time, a little time left over, take time to read your work. Proofread your work. We're not going to take points off because you had a typo here or there. We understand the time situation. But critically read through your own answer. And, say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't work. Or, oh, yeah, I should have put that sentence up here. This really doesn't make sense. Take a little time to do that, and it will ensure that you have an excellent answer. So that thesis. A couple of facts about it, and this is taken right out of the University of Central Missouri Thesis Manual. It's the result of research and scholarly activity that gives evidence of independent, critical, and creative investigation. The thesis demonstrates the ability to complete all of the steps in the research process. So what the thesis is not is a giant research paper. There is actually some original research that goes on your part. It has a lot of the same parts, but it is significantly different. So hints, what to do, how to get it actually completed. Before you begin, find out what all of the requirements are. The graduate school has particular requirements. The criminal justice department has particular requirements. Again, ask. Read and ask. Make sure if you have any questions about those requirements to ask someone, and they will certainly fill you in on that. Research your possible topics. A very good place to start is a topic that you're interested in, like drug courts, for example. Read the literature on drug courts and see where the gap in the literature is. Frequently, the research literature will identify, we answered this in this question, but this question is still left unanswered. So there's your avenue for research right there. There are some topics that are very cool, but there's no research on, or they're very, very difficult to actually conduct research on. So be aware of that. And again, talk with faculty or other students even about what they've done. We have old theses that have already been completed in a room in the criminal justice department. Take a look at those. See what other students have done, what approaches they have taken. Another place that you can find a possible topic is in finding your committee members. As Dr. Bonham and Dr. Kreisel said, all of our faculty members have some sort of real-world experience. So they'll be able to clue you in as far as how easy or hard it will be to actually collect the data that you're looking for. So getting started, the thesis has lots of paperwork. There's the application for thesis, project, and committee. That's the link that Dr. Bonham just showed you at the bottom of that forms page. So that's the very first thing to do. It's a very simple form, but it just identifies for you and for us who's actually on your committee. Then you'll need to enroll in that CJ 6600 class. Those are your thesis hours. As Dr. Bonham said, you want to do that your final semester. That will be another way that you can help manage your time, because you'll have that 6 hours on paper to work on your thesis. So hopefully you'll either only have one other class, or maybe you'll be lucky enough to not have any other classes, and you'll be able to focus directly on your thesis. Any research at the University of Central Missouri that has anything to do with humans, which criminal justice does, needs human subjects approval through our institutional review board. Frequently, this is not a complicated process. There are a lot of projects that can use the expedited review, which is not very complicated at all, but you do want to make sure that that gets done and that you allot yourself plenty of time to get that paperwork done. You want to make sure that you communicate with the chair of your committee and with the rest of the members of your committee. You want to make sure what it is that they're expecting from you. Most faculty members do actually have a piece of paper that say, these are my expectations, and then you can work together to work through that timeline and work through all of those expectations to make sure that you are completing what the chair wants you to. Also, be sure to keep your chair in the loop whenever you are running into problems. Perhaps you had a great plan for data collection, but then you've run into a roadblock. I don't think I'm going to be able to collect my data this way. Make sure your chair stays on top of all of those things that might happen so that you can make sure to modify your project as needed. And in that way, you want to make sure you have some very clear research questions. You don't want to walk into your chair and say, oh, I want to do research on juveniles. Okay, could we narrow that down a little bit? You want to make sure that your research questions are very clear so that everybody knows exactly which direction your research is headed. So in the middle of the process, again, you want to start early. We have a theme here for both the comprehensive exam and the thesis option. You want to start early. Most theses take at least 12 months. Some will take even longer, depending on what kind of data you want to collect or some other issues that might happen. You want to create a timeline for yourself and stick to it. And make it reasonable. Some people make it according to your style. Some people make a timeline that says, I'm going to work for 2 hours every day on this. Some people say, I'm going to write 2 pages a week. Some people have other strategies. So whatever's going to work for you that is going to be able to keep you on track is what you want to do. One thing you can do also for your thesis that helps with this start early idea is to use all of your classes to your advantage. You're going to be writing a ton of papers throughout your graduate career. If you're interested in your thesis being about drug courts, don't write your paper in administration of justice on jails because that's not what you're interested in. Go ahead and start looking at the literature. Start formulating that literature review that you can go ahead and use in your thesis. Make all of your papers work for you as you work through the program. Definitely something, again, you want to do during your process is to ask. Even if your chair doesn't say, I want a draft, give them one. If you're stuck on something, show it to them. Say, where should I go from here? Does this look right to you? Does this look like my organization is good? Plan on at least 2 or 3 drafts of each chapter. And there are lots of online resources. We're in the process of creating a resource guide for incoming graduate students. And they have all kinds of resources from the graduate school, extended studies, and the Center for Teaching and Learning. And they can help you with those kinds of processes in the writing process. The number one reason that people delay getting their thesis completed is organizational. That we read through it and it's confusing, or this section really doesn't go here, it goes here. So again, you're going to have 2 to 3 drafts at least, but you want to make sure, again, that it's very clear and very concise as to what your research project is. Keep in mind that a thesis is not 5 separate chapters, but it's one complete document. Items that are in the introduction will back up what's in the literature review, and later on in the results section, you should read the same things that you read about in the literature review. And then your conclusion kind of ties it all together. Where does your research fit into this, into the whole literature on the topic? Be aware of timelines, not only your personal one and that graduation date, but the dates for turning things in are weeks ahead of actual graduation day. And the graduate school has different timelines than the criminal justice department. All of those are published, and all of those are in the thesis manual or online somewhere.